Dun, dun. Hi, everyone. It's just me, your friendly neighborhood Blair. I'm here. I'm doing the show solo tonight. Welcome to This Week in Science. I'm just getting everything kind of situated. I want to make sure that my audio and video is good. I know there were some issues last time I did this on my own, and so I just want to make sure I am hardwired. I have everything hooked up. I'm going to give a tap tap to my mic, which I checked, but I just want to make sure. Great. Looks great. Sound great. Thanks, Paul. Okay. So we are going to get started here in just a second. This is our live broadcast. If you're watching this either live with me, you can chat along. I'm monitoring YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Discord. That's what I have. So you can pop those chats in as I'm talking. I'm going to do my best to kind of chat along with you all. Please don't make me talk into the void by myself. So I wasn't here last week. I've been fighting an illness on and off, as many of us have, all winter. And so I'm back. We'll see how long my voice actually holds out, though. That'll be interesting. But yeah, so hop in the chat with me. Once I kind of start this off like officially, that's going to be the portion that will be released later as an audio podcast. So I'm going to try to keep it kind of tighter for that. And I will, however, continue, like I said, to monitor the chat. So in just a second, we're going to get started. I am going to run this thing all by myself. Hopefully it won't be too bumpy, but it's always kind of, I feel like I'm trying to learn to play the drums every time I do this, which I did. I took several drum lessons back in the day, and it's all four limbs are doing something different, which, I played the saxophone. I could do two limbs doing the same different things. Four is too many. So I'm trying to do that here. I'm running all the media pieces, playing the music, trying to display graphics. I'm watching the rundown, trying to host the show, like make sure the flow is going right, monitoring the chat. I'm doing all of that at once. So I'm going to do my best, but if there are any hiccups or anything like that, those are things that'll be edited out for the audio. So all that being said, Gord, winter is also my happy place, but I have this thing called a toddler now, which means it's just a living, moving vector. And so winters have been fundamentally different for me ever since I had a child. Because of that, because it's like the thing that everyone says is like, oh, you have a kid, you're sick now all winter. And you're like, ah, that's so funny. And then it's real. So anyway, with that, we're going to get started. Hold on. There's always something I forgot to do. Oh, there's too many things. Today is March 4th. Okay. Here we go. Where's my audio? There it is. Okay. Here we go. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 1050, recorded on Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. This week in Blair's Animal Corner. Hi, everyone. I'm Blair, and today we are going to fill your head with bat backpacks, caribou horns, and sniffer dogs. But first, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Do not adjust your sets. This week, there will be no astronomy, no brains, no anthropology, no physics. No, this week it's all about the wild, wacky, wonderful world of all things zoological. So polish your scales, blink your many eyes, brush your fur, sharpen those claws, and prepare yourself for This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, everyone listening out there and joining me along in our chat rooms live. I'm Blair Bazderich, and this is This Week in Science. Happy Day of Science to you all. Thank you for joining us this week. It is just me. I am flying solo this week, and so I have brought all things animals. This is an extra large Blair's Animal Corner this week. I have tiny recording backpacks for bats. I have caribou horns, antlers. I said horns in the intro. Ooh, I'd be so mad at myself. I wasn't doing this by myself. I have sniffer dogs, an update on them and their abilities. And I also, as a bonus, have one on lazy fish, or maybe not so lazy. As we jump into the show, I wanted to remind everyone that you can help us This Week in Science, TWIS, by subscribing to us on your favorite podcast platform. And that could also be, just the audio medium via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever it is. Or you can watch us visually. It's basically the same show on YouTube, Facebook, or anything else that streams video that we might be on. You can also just go to twis.org and click on any of the buttons there to find us. But subscribing really does help. And then you'll know every time there's a new episode that's published. Just search for This Week in Science, or, like I said, go to twis.org. But now it's time to talk about science. And in fact, I'm going to play my theme song to get started here, because it's Oops, all Blair's Animal Corner this week.
Great and small, biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels, there's Animal Corner.
Can you all say it for me? What you got, Blair? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So I'm going to start with the bat backpacks, because I think this is really fun. There's a lot of reasons to put a backpack on an animal in the wild. It's to capture some sort of data, ultimately. A lot of the time we discuss, it could be a GPS tracker. It could be a metabolic tracker. It could be a step machine, like basically a pedometer, but for an animal. But in this case, it's actually recording sound. And if you wanted to know how to find out not only what bats are eating, but how long it takes them to eat, I wouldn't have guessed sound was the way to do it. But here we are. So these little backpacks about the size of a Lego, attached to bats in Panama. They are fringe-lipped bats. They were recording basically a whole night with these bats. So the whole time they're awake. They would catch a bat on its way out of the roost, check its age and its sex, and then glue this tiny tag to the fur between their shoulder blades. And it's about the size of like a 2x6 Lego brick. So it would record a whole night and then essentially die. Not the bat, the battery on the backpack. And then within a few days, the tag would either fall off, or they would be able to kind of track them to find the bat with the tracker on it, catch them, snip a little bit of fur, take it off, and then release the bat again. So it was fairly non-invasive. And so it captured in all about 5 to 6 hours of continuous sound. And based on previous studies with these particular bats in captivity, they were able to match sounds to behaviors. So they could figure out when they were flying, when they were attacking prey, and of course, crunch, 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 crunch when they were eating their food, which in this case, usually it's crunchy bones that they are crunching on that you can go, oh, that bat is really chowing down on some bones right now. And so you kind of could build this story based on the 5 or 6 hours of continuous sound. So they paired that, like I said, with decades of field knowledge and also some laboratory experiments. So they could kind of build a story based on what they hear. So for an example, they could hear a frog sound, a Tungara frog particularly. So like they knew which frog it was based on the frog call. Then they would hear a little bit of movement, a burst of wing beats, and then some echolocation calls, some changes in their calls that makes it sound like they're trying to steer via their echolocation, and then a rush of air, which means they're probably doing some intense dive to catch their prey, and then a splash. So they went into the water, some more wing beats, and then crunch, 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 crunch. So they actually were able to capture, they're catching this particular frog in the water. It took this long to catch it. It took this long to eat it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There was another case where they heard beat of wings, then they landed kind of like a thump, and then chomp, 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 chomp. Then they eat for 5 minutes, 10, 20. This is a long meal. Then they stop eating. Then everything's quiet. The bat is asleep. Much later, a little bit of rustling sound, a few pulses of echolocation, and then more crunching. Altogether, 84 minutes of chewing without an additional hunting spray. So it sounds like this is similar to like when mountain lions will catch something, they'll eat part of it, they'll cache it, they'll go do some other stuff, they'll come back, they'll eat some more. And so they keep doing that. So this almost feels like this bat caught something so big that they ate and slept and ate and slept and ate and slept. So this is already kind of subverting the expectation of how a small predator like a bat would function. The expectation would be that they would just hunt and catch things that they could eat in one sitting, because having a large kill to protect makes you vulnerable. So sure, that works fine for lions or wolves or bears or mountain lions, but there also is a larger cost to stalking larger prey. So the expectation is you have this payoff, and then you can take advantage of that large payday of food over time, because you don't have to worry about other animals coming to hunt you, and because you can protect that catch from other individuals. Small predators don't usually do that. They usually have to eat often and small amounts. And so for bats, especially because they're also flying, they can't travel with these catches, right? So they usually hunt small things that are easy to catch, quick, low-cost meals, so that they can just keep feeding that metabolic machine. On average, bats had made about 7 attacks per night, and they succeed about half of the time. So hearing that long chewing episode it felt like an anomaly. Was this bat just a slow eater, or had they taken this really large prey and taken a bunch of time to eat it because it was big? So then they did an experiment in captivity to try to figure out if they could capture something similar visually. So they created a scale of how long it takes these bats to chew different things of known weights, which is hilarious to me. They came up with a chewing timeline scale for bats. That created a calibration so they could translate the chew time in these audio recordings into meal size. So most prey weighed around 2 grams, but in the case of this very long eating spree and a couple of others, it seems like it could be up to 30 grams, which is basically the same weight as the bat. Like they caught something their own weight. Like, can you imagine getting a steak in a restaurant that weighs like 100 and something pounds, and you're just going to eat that for the next 2 days? Like that's too much food. But that's also just like, it's daunting. But so it's a very complicated feeding strategy from these bats. My explanation for this is that they just take advantage of what they can. And they're just like any other animal. They're taking advantage of opportunities that present themselves. And perhaps these bats are just more flexible in their feeding strategies than some of the other animals that we've observed in the past. But I would want much, much, much more study on this to see how much of an anomaly this is, if it happens time and time again, or do certain individuals lean harder on capturing big prey? I don't know. I think that there's a rich vein of research here to be explored for sure. They also found overall that these bats didn't spend as much time flying as they expected during the night. They only flew about 11% of the time in these sound recordings. And so that equates to less than half an hour over the 5 hours of recording. So they're finding their meals quickly. They're doing that through they called it acoustic espionage. Instead of using echolocations to detect their prey, they eavesdrop on sound. So, for example, that frog, they didn't have to echolocate because the frog was giving away its own location. So they kept coming after animals that made sounds of their own, so that they didn't have to put energy or time into echolocating and trial and error. Somebody in the chat room is asking what kind of bat this is again. It's called a fringe-lipped bat, Trachopterosus. The scientific names are always really hard for me to pronounce. But yeah, so they didn't spend a lot of time flying because they kind of were waiting for their moment. They were able to use the sound of the frogs that they heard to be able to just go after them without doing the echolocation piece. So I think that was pretty smart of them. It's pretty cool. And so they also do bring up that these particular bats, some of them live over 14 years. They're very long lived and they have very good memories. We know this from previous studies on these bats. And so they can learn new prey sounds over time by trial and error or by observing other bats. And so that would be the next question I'd have. Is this bat that got a really large payday and spent over an hour eating throughout the night, was that an older bat? Was that a bat that's been training its whole life to make this kill? Or like, was it a bat that was actually really young and made maybe a dumb decision going after a large prey item, but it happened to work out for them, right? So like, I think there's a lot of variables at play. I'm really intrigued to hear more about kind of like why it takes them so long to eat. Why they would go for these large paydays instead of, they're in the rainforest. There's frogs everywhere. Why wouldn't you just catch a bunch of tiny frogs? I understand that there's an energetic output each time you hunt, which is kind of what they're getting at with that 11% of their time in flight total throughout the night. But there also is, like I was saying, there's like an energetic cost to protecting a kill, holding that kill, and also digesting all of that. I don't know. It's very interesting to me that it was so variable. In a rainforest, bats that have evolved alongside rainforest animals have had many, 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 many thousands of years to develop strategies that there would be this much variability is kind of surprising to me, because the rainforest has a lot of animals in it. It's not like slim pickings. So they can do kind of whatever they would want, but then to have this huge difference in hunting and eating strategies is pretty wild. But I just love the idea of a bunch of researchers sitting around a lab listening to crunching sounds and getting more and more excited. I'd get excited, honestly. Sounds great. I'd want to listen to bats crunch, 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 crunch just all day. What's our chat room saying? Yeah. Yeah, lots of small meals throughout the day. We know that's good for a lot of animals, including ourselves, right? Like that's a pretty common suggestion for humans too. Lots of small meals throughout the day. Unless you're on keto, that was all the rage a few years ago, right? And then that was one big meal. So I don't know. We don't know. Mammals are weird. All right. Next story. What do I have next? Oh, the caribou. Wait for my computer to catch up. So caribou, also known as reindeer. Caribou are the only quote unquote deer that have where the females have antlers. And yes, I did call them horns earlier, and I just nobody yell at me, okay? I've been reading a children's book by Dr. Seuss about a moose, and they call his antlers horns about 100 times in the book. And it like causes me a twitch every time I call antlers horns, and now it's oh my goodness, I did it. I can't believe it. Anyway, they're antlers. Horns attached to the skull, don't fall off. It's just bone and usually a sheath of keratin over it. Antlers are shed annually. They're branched, and they are bone, but they are vascularized. So they have like veins going through them, and they're covered in skin, like fuzzy, skinny. It's called velvet, right? And so caribou, reindeer, whatever you want to call them. This is true for normal deer too, like white-tailed deer and stuff like that. You'll see them rubbing their antlers on things, and they'll be like rubbing the felt off throughout the year, and then eventually before they fall off completely, they look kind of white, and it's because all of that stuff has come off. But so caribou / reindeer, the only deer where females and males have antlers. However, they do lose them at different times. So I forgot to look it up. Caribou lose antlers. I can't keep it all in my head, guys. It's bulls or males shed their antlers around November, December. Females retain their antlers through the winter, and they shed them in April or May. So this is what I think is so funny about this. When I worked at the zoo, we had reindeer during the winter months for obvious reasons. And we had fun reindeer facts. And one of them was, some people got very upset about this, I don't know, that all of Santa's reindeer are girls because they have antlers. And male caribou lose their antlers in November, December. So they would all be bald. They wouldn't have their antlers if they were boys. So all of Santa's reindeer are girls. Just heads up. So anyway, caribou girls have antlers. And so there have been a lot of different theories about why they're the only deer that continue to have antlers. And now there's a new one. So I'm going to talk about it. I feel like it's a little controversial. This study looked at the calving grounds in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. It is an area where migratory females both give birth and then also they shed their antlers. There's a study out of University of Cincinnati, and they found that that there was something very specifically unusual about these antlers. And so I'll get back to it in a minute. But the interesting thing about the grounds themselves, the calving grounds, is that because of the cold and dry Arctic tundra, the shed antlers sit there for a long time. They can be there for hundreds of years undisturbed because there's not a lot of bacterial growth, because there's not a lot of other animals. And so they're there. They just sit there. There's just littered with antlers everywhere. One of the previous theories about why females would have antlers is that they ultimately are a defense tool. That's why males have antlers, is so that they can defend themselves. Or I would clarify, mostly it's for competition. It's for males to compete with each other. At the top, it's to look scary and to look intimidating, but they will also then use them when they are fighting with each other to gain access to females. So biologists often look at the antlers on females and say females must need to defend their grazing spots or their babies from predators. But females usually lose their antlers within days of giving birth. So why would they lose this extra defense strategy while they have a newborn baby? That doesn't really make any sense. Also, in previous studies with caribou, in previous studies, but also talking to reindeer herders, in both cases, it looks like caribou are more likely to trample and kick with their hooves than they are to attack with their antlers. So that is making less sense for all of those reasons. So next, they examined these antlers, and this is where things get really interesting. They were covered in chew marks. They were going, ngang, 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 somebody on these antlers. And 86% of the 1,500 antlers that they examined showed signs of gnawing. 99% of those gnaw marks were left by caribou. So the caribou are gnawing, these same female caribou are gnawing on their antlers. So now comes this new theory, which I feel medium about at best, which is that they are able to chew on the antlers to gain nutritional supplements. This is tough for me, for a few reasons. So they're saying that the antlers are high in calcium and phosphorus. The migration is really difficult on them right before this. Birth is obviously very difficult on them. This is a way to store nutrients for them to get later. Okay. I get it. However, if they didn't make the antlers, they'd keep the nutrients. Like when it takes energy to create biomass like that. And it also takes those same nutrients to build the antlers, to grow the antlers. So yes, perhaps they're holding on to it, saving it for later, as it were. That's possible. But I think it is way more possible that they just still have antlers and that all the other deer species have evolved out of it and they haven't. So I think, it's like nitpicky for me to say, but it's almost as if, like, you're looking at it and saying, "Oh, they have antlers so that they can supplement their diet by gnawing on the antlers." Instead of saying, "They have antlers. They haven't lost their antlers yet. Oh, there's a benefit. They can gnaw on those antlers after they lose them." And so I think, it might not sound that different, but to me it's a pretty big distinction, because it's not they kept the antlers so they could have a nutrient bank versus they use the antlers that they have to gnaw on because it's there. They might gnaw on bones if it was there. It's not for that, but they use it for that. And so I think recognizing that there's probably another reason, right? Like, are we sure the females aren't competing for space before they give birth? Are we sure that there's not a sexual selection involved? Are we sure that, that it's kind of left over, it's vestigial, and I don't know. I think that it's very strange to me that that they're the only ones. I agree with that. I also think it's interesting that they lose them at a different time than the males. So that's the other question, is like, do they have the default schedule and the males change theirs over evolutionary time? Or is there a benefit to keeping them and then losing them right when they give birth? I think jury's out for me. But I do think that they're right to say that, like, if you don't see those animals using them for self-defense, that's probably not what they're doing. And also, like I said, the males don't use them for self-defense. They use them to compete with other males. So to jump to the conclusion that it's being used for defense is flawed, for sure. So there is something else going on. It also is cool that they gnaw on their antlers. I'm not saying that's not cool. I'm not saying that's not true. But to say that that's why they have antlers and other deer don't, I think is a huge jump. And so I think there's more to learn here, for sure. Oh yes, and we have a hot debate about reindeer and caribou. Okay, so yes, a ferret is a domesticated polecat. A reindeer is a domesticated caribou. So yes, over time, as humans last longer and we continue to domesticate them, they might be split. But for right now, to my knowledge, they are the same genus species. Yeah, and I think Paul is bringing up a really good point in the chat. He says it's foolish to think that evolution has reasons for animals having features. Like, that's just like a bedtime story thing. Like, how'd the tiger get its stripes, right? There's no end goals of the process. Things just happen, and they either have a benefit, a disadvantage, or are neutral. Absolutely. So maybe less than asking why caribou have antlers, the question is, why don't other deer species have them? What is the benefit of females not having antlers in these other species? I think that is something to consider. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to move on to story number 3. And this one, I'm going to be channeling Justin a little bit. We miss Justin. He and I would get in a lot of debates about sniffer dogs and what dogs are capable of smelling and being trained to smell. In particular, around the COVID era, there were a lot of studies around COVID sniffing dogs, and I know he had some trouble understanding how that would truly work out. Which I get. It's especially if you haven't experienced animal training in real time or experienced amazing olfactory skills in real time of animals. I think that it sounds very fantastical, but once you start to see really the difference between how we smell and other animals smell, and also how trainable and how smart dogs are and how motivated they are to do tasks for the right reward. All that kind of adds together into something that is truly remarkable and quite useful for humans. And so, yeah, so there are COVID sniffing dogs. There are, of course, drug sniffing dogs. There are bomb sniffing dogs. There are also trafficked wildlife dogs. So there are dogs that smell shipments or people coming in through customs to see if they have animal merchandise that they are not supposed to have. So there's CITES, which is the Convention on the International Trade of Endangered Species, which is kind of just generally the people who decide what is and is not illegal to trade and to cross borders. An example of that is anything made out of a tiger. You're not supposed to bring those into the United States or into any other country in CITES. You're not supposed to bring them out of a country with tigers into another country. Rhino horn. You're not supposed to bring that anywhere. Elephant ivory, right? Bear bile. There's a lot of things that are trafficked from wildlife, including just wild animals as pets also, that it is borders and customs, Fish and Wildlife, their job is to try to stop that stuff from coming in. And so just to kind of give a little bit more context, because a lot of people have questions about this. The animal's already dead and already been, turned into whatever item. What is the harm in letting them come into the United States or into another country? Ultimately, good question. But the idea is if you allow it in, it develops a market. If you allow it in, there's a price attached to it, and it will encourage more trade of that thing. And so you have to stop that and confiscate those items at the border whenever possible to reduce the trafficking of endangered animals or protected animals. And so there's a lot of ways you can do that. Drug sniffing dogs, not drug sniffing, but sniffing dogs, electron microscopy, just questioning people, visual inspection from humans. There's all sorts of different ways to kind of try to catch that stuff, but you can't catch everything. And in particular, shipping containers can be a real kind of leaky spot for this because they're huge. Sometimes they're stacked. Sometimes they're filled with things besides those things. There's just one or two illegal things amongst a sea of things that are not illegal. So there's a lot of opportunities to totally miss this. Also, like if they're stacked and inaccessible on a big tanker, like how do you get in there? Is it a place where you can even bring a dog? There's a lot of blocking to specifically properly searching and inspecting these shipping containers for endangered species products. So this new study looked at an air extraction method from sealed shipping containers. This is from Adelaide University, their School of Animal and Veterinary Sciences, and they designed a portable air extraction device which fits onto a standard container vent. They all have vents, and it draws air through a filter. The filter is presented to a trained detection dog, and they can indicate whether the scent of a specific illegal wildlife product is present. They tested it by concealing pelts from 5 big cat species: lion, tiger, leopard, snow leopard, and cheetah, and they concealed them inside 20-foot and 40-foot shipping containers. They were arranged in different realistic smuggling conditions, including hiding them inside boxes to increase potential concealment. And the trained dogs assessed the air samples on the filter under a range of airflow conditions and container configurations. So they really tried to eliminate as many variables as possible, just like, hey, if we pull air through the vent, through a filter, like basically like a dryer sheet. Then we present that dryer sheet to the dog. Will they be able to know if there's something in that container? Which I know to us sounds insane. Like that would never work for a human nose. But I will remind us all that the nasal turbinates, those are the little surfaces in our nose that have all of the nerve endings for smelling in our nose. If we took all of that out of our nose and we flattened it out, it'd be about the size of a postage stamp. But if we did that to a dog, it would be the size of a handkerchief. So they have way, 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 way more nerve endings in their nose. Their turbinates are way larger. They are set up for this. They're like made for it. So they were able to correctly identify if there was something being quote unquote smuggled 98% of the time. 98%. So this is extremely effective. This is only with cat species. This was only in a test scenario. But as an initial test of this method, extremely successful. So this means you don't even have to bring the dog to the container. You can take air samples, take it back to land if they're on a shipping container on a ship or something. Have all the filters labeled. Have the dog smell all the filters and say, I need to search this container. This could be huge because, it's when I originally read the kind of the summary of this, I started thinking about like a bunch of jars of air and you'd kind of like open it and be like, smell this. No, right? But the filters actually make sense. They're almost like little, I picture like the little cotton swabs that are circles that are flat that you might use to like take off your makeup or something like that. But like very portable, very easy to store and to label, something you can bring to the dog as opposed to bringing the dog to the shipping container. And it's you can, it's not immediate. You can take some time to do it. So while the shipping container is like waiting in line to go through, you can take it back, have the dog smell it, say, yes, you're all good, or no, I need to check XYZ containers. So this is a really, really cool, low cost, portable, scalable opportunity to reduce wildlife trafficking through shipping containers, which I had no idea to this point has been really hard to maintain any sort of regular inspection of these shipping containers. They're also saying that this method could be adapted to other types of trained dogs, like narcotics smuggling, of course, drug dogs, and I bet lots of other things too. So it really is a great show of just how sensitive dogs' noses are, and God, they're so cool. Dogs are awesome. They have so much to offer. I just love all the different ways that we use dogs in our society. I feel like it's such a good it's such like a good example of how domestication is supposed to work. Like this animal has come into our homes and lives with us and gets all the pets, and some of them have jobs and they go and they sniff out lion pelts during the day, or they help prevent someone from getting hurt when they have a seizure, or they tell somebody when their insulin levels drop, or they search and rescue, right? Like dogs they help a person with vision disabilities cross the street safely. Like there's so many different ways that dogs can be trained to help us. I think it's awesome. Anyway. All right, so I have one more story tonight for the animal corner, and I thought this one was really funny. Part of the fun of this show is to kind of pose questions of some of these studies, but every once in a while there is a study where I'm like, what are you doing? Sometimes I feel like people come up with a study or a test model, and they're really excited to do it, and then they kind of have to like reverse engineer why. Why is this an interesting question? Why do I want to test this in this particular way? What question am I trying to ask? Like, I've come up with this really cool study. what am I actually trying to find out? So this is one of those, in my opinion. I don't know. It's a cool study. What they found out is really cool. The premise is the problem that I have, which is, according to this, previously people assumed that fish, like when you looked at them sitting in the water and they weren't really moving, they were just kind of staying in one place in the water as it moved. The expectation was that it didn't take a lot of effort to stay in one place if you were a fish. Mainly because they have a swim bladder, which allows them to regulate their buoyancy, helps them to avoid sinking or floating. But because you look down and you kind of just see this fish kind of just bobbing in the water, I guess people thought that that was easy. But have you ever tried to just hang out in a swimming pool with other people in the swimming pool without getting bopped around in the water? And that's a swimming pool. And this is like, a lot of these fish are river fish. Like, the water's moving. But for some reason, everyone thought it was easy, like it was neutral to stay in one place as a fish. I think bonkers to me. But so that's the premise here, is that fish, it must be easy for them to remain suspended in one place in the water column. Well, surprise, it's not. But this is where the study itself, I think, is really interesting. So there's a comparative study of 13 near neutrally buoyant species. So they have the swim bladder. They can find a way to, at least up and down, find a neutral space in the water column. Cool. They checked their metabolic rates, and while they were hovering, quote unquote, it was almost twice as high as it was when they were at rest. And when they were at rest, that's if they were in the lab and they were laying on the ground. So they were resting on the bottom of the tank. And in some cases, they were even greater than twice as high as when they were at rest. So they're saying this challenges the long-standing assumption that fish can remain motionless in the water column at little physiological cost, which, like, yeah, I never would have guessed that, but that's fine. When they looked at kind of just fundamentally what was going on, fish have a center of mass, and their center of mass and their center of buoyancy are not aligned. So there's an offset between these two centers, which means there would be a pitch or roll of a fish. So they would, like, roll around in the water if they didn't make any corrective action. So when they are staying kind of in neutral place in the water, that means they are working at it to stay that way. They took metabolic measurements. They did detailed movement observations. So they placed them in a respirometer chamber so they could measure oxygen consumption. And then they did kind of high-speed camera recordings. And they found that the fish were indeed good at maintaining a postural equilibrium, but there was constant fin movements. They were tiny, but pectoral, pelvic, anal, and tail fins all moving to maintain their position constantly. And across all 13 species, their metabolic rates were very high, higher than resting levels, and in many of them, double. So they're hovering for all sorts of reasons. They might hover to guard eggs. They might hover to feed. They might hover to avoid obstacles. And ultimately, though, they are not resting. I think that's the thing that I guess was the I never would have guessed. I don't know who they were talking to. I wouldn't, like, if you talk to 10 ichthyologists, I don't think any of them would think that a fish hovering in the middle of the water column is at rest. But that's fine. Ultimately, this is where this gets interesting, I think. They're saying, oh, of course, we can use this to design underwater robots. And there it is. I feel like that's the real reason for the study. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm jaded. Maybe I just want to blame robots for everything in the year 2026. But they want to find a way to make an underwater robot that can hold position and stabilize itself. And so by studying the fish and how they coordinate fin movement and adjust to disturbance in the water, helps them to design how to make a hovering underwater robot, which sounds terrifying. So that's my like conspiracy theory about this, is that is the reason why. But I do think it's very cool to see how the swim bladder, metabolic rate, fin movement, and body posture all play a role in what looks very calm if you look down on the fish. Like I know in San Francisco, my whole life I've been going to the Japanese tea garden. They have koi fish in there. And you can look down at them. The water is beautiful. It's very clear. And you can see these koi just kind of like chilling. But in reality, to think about the one, no, not that way. It's just, it's pretty fun to think about how much goes into that. But I also do very much relate to it as somebody who spends a lot of time in the pool. That's not the easiest to stay in one place when there's lots of water movement around you. Yeah. And yeah, Flying Out says, I'm a diver. Buoyancy takes practice. That's right. And especially if you're in a river where substrate's moving, the rate of flow is different. There are animals moving around you. Water temperatures can be different. Salinity can be different if you're working in or out of an estuary type zone. There's lots of different things at play that can impact your buoyancy, your location, the momentum in the water, all sorts of things. So it's a lot to deal with. All right. Well, that is all I brought today. That's it for Oops All Blair's Animal Corner. This is the last chance for any comments or questions in the various chat rooms. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and start my outro here. Thank you all for joining me tonight. I did have fun telling you about all of my animal stories. I was very excited to share. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed talking. For those of you who've been with us for a long time, you know I love to talk about animals. I could do it all day, every day. Shout outs to Fada for his help with our social media and our show notes. Shout out to Gord for manning the chat room, Identity4 for recording the show, and Rachel for all the amazing assistance, including editing our show here. I'd also like to thank our Patreon sponsors for their generous support. This is where you can pretend that I have the list and that I am reading everyone's name. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon. If you're interested in supporting us on Patreon, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience, or you can go to TWIS.org and click on the Patreon link. On next week's show, we will be back. Kiki will be back with us, so it'll be me and Kiki next week. Please don't miss it. That'll be at 8 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll be broadcasting live from Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, all the normal places. Also, it is in the United States daylight savings time. Well, most of the United States. The smart states don't do it, but we will be springing forward next week. So what is now called 7 o'clock will be 8 o'clock next week. And that is when we will be doing TWIS next week. Hey, do you want to listen to us as a podcast? Just search for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe as well. For more information on anything you've heard here today, if you want to fact check me on any of the things that I discussed, go ahead and fact check it, but don't tell me. I'd rather not know. You can find links to stories on our website. That's at www.twist.org. And you can also sign up for a newsletter, which will someday come. It's, waiting for our newsletter, like waiting for Godot. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, or a suggestion for an interview, please let us know on, you could try social media. Just send us an email. Be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into oblivion. Or just, I'm talking and I completely forgot to do my normal thing. I'm going to do that one more time. Be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, or your email will be spam filtered into a neutrally buoyant fish that forgot to flap his fins, and he's just rolling over and over and over and over, and we'll never get the message. We look forward to discussing science with you again next week, and if you've learned anything from the show, remember, it's all in your head. I can't find the outro music.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science.
Kiki's so good with that music fade. It's really difficult. Yes, an hour went by very fast, didn't it? Oh, I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Thanks, Sandy SodaStream. Thanks for joining me for all the animals tonight. Oh, all right. Well, from the look of things, it looks like I might need to help with bedtime, because we're trying to get my child to bed a little earlier to prepare for daylight savings time, and I think it has backfired because it looks like he's not asleep yet. So I think I need to go try to assist with that process. Oh boy. I might be very tired next week. You'll have to see how everything's looking, but I don't like spring forward. Spring forward's really tough because you have a kid who's like, no, it's 7 o'clock. And you're like, no, it's 8 o'clock. Children and pets. Daylight savings time is not it. All right. Well, any last parting words from anybody before I scoot? Oh, yes. Thank you, Gord. Good luck everyone else with their time change, and be careful on the road. People drive really bad right after the time change because everyone's tired. There's more accidents after the time change. That's a real thing. So be careful. Give everyone grace. People are going to be grumpy. We're all just animals that are being all thrown off our circadian rhythm. So just be careful. Oh, yeah, Sandy SodaStream. There is a Discord. You get invited to the Discord if you join us on Patreon, I do believe. But you can reach out to us through our email or through social media, and you can ask more. Kiki's in charge of it. I don't. I just bring the animals. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Fada. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Gord. I'm going to say goodnight. As Kiki would say, I don't know, what does she say? Stay beautiful, guys. Stay curious. Stay smart. Stay doing all your stuff. I'm going to say, do something that you enjoy tomorrow. It's my little thing to you. And then also, as Kiki would say, stay lucky. Bye, everybody. Good night.